Welcome friends to another r/entitled parents video. As always, if you enjoy this video, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. And our first story of the day is by Dragonfire10, entitled Mother Demands That Girlfriend Goes Out With Her Son. Some context: I'm a Chelsea fan, 19-year-old male, and my girlfriend is a West Ham fan, also 19. Her best friend, who's 19 since they were 4, and her boyfriend, 20-year-old male, are Manchester City fans. So of course all of us got together at a pub to watch the Champions League final, which Chelsea won, thanks to a wonder goal by the beast that is Kai Havertz. Since this was an all-English final, the pub we went to decided to have a menu inspired by the team's players. We were in our respective team shirts, including girlfriend. The pub was split into two, one side for the football fans and their families, entitled Mother and her family included, and another for families who wanted to eat out. They were warned by the waiters that things may get a little rowdy from the football side. Anyway, on with the story. Once we arrived and engaged in friendly rival banter and ordered some drinks, we got down to business, which was a small game with a forfeit, where the loser would have to wear a Manchester United shirt. Anyway, girlfriend lost and went into the toilets to change her top. Once she came out, we mockingly booed her, in which she responded by kissing me. At halftime, girlfriend went to get us a refill of drink when she had a small convo with entitled Mother. The entitled Mother said, "Having fun?" Girlfriend said, "Yeah, it's been a good game. It's going to be a nervous second half." The entitled Mother says, "I've seen you kissing that Chelsea boy at your table." Girlfriend says, "Yeah, because he's my boyfriend." Entitled Mother was going to say something, but her drinks were being given to her, so she had to leave. 2 minutes later, girlfriend got the drinks and came back to our table. Fast forward a very tense hour later, Chelsea were crowned champions of Europe. I could barely contain my excitement and kissed my girlfriend. During the celebrations, entitled Mother's son came to both me and my girlfriend to congratulate me on the game, and we got talking, mainly about the game. About 10 minutes later, he leaves and entitled Mother comes up to the both of us and starts addressing us. Entitled Mother says, "Why are you letting this Chelsea fan hold you?" Girlfriend says, "Because he's my boyfriend." The entitled Mother says, "You should be dating a Manchester United fan, being one yourself." Me, realizing what entitled Mother thought, said, "Oh, she's not really a United fan, she's a..." Entitled Mother, cutting me off, said, "She's a United fan, otherwise she wouldn't be wearing the shirt. Now my son is a United fan and he's currently single." Girlfriend says, "I don't want to date your son and I'm not a United fan, and I'm only wearing this shirt for a forfeit." The entitled Mother says, "My son is very good-looking, smart, and well-behaved. A perfect boyfriend for a United girl such as yourself." I say, "But she's a West Ham fan." The entitled Mother said, "My son is ever so caring and will look after you better than this Chelsea scum will ever do, plus he won't cry." Girlfriend says, "Look, I'm not a Manchester United fan." The entitled Mother says, "You are. And I can't believe that you're dating, let alone kissing a fan of one of the biggest rivals. You should listen to me and dump him immediately for my son." Then, in probably the best bad-to-the-bone move my girlfriend has ever done, she just looked at entitled Mother, turned to me, and kissed me passionately on the lips, putting her middle finger up at entitled Mother. She then got her bag, grabbed my hand, and left, leaving a seething entitled Mother shouting, "You traitor!" after us. We went back to hers and wrote this encounter down. Let me ask you guys, is there ever a situation where a person's mother would come up to you and ask that you date their child and you would just say yes or actually consider it that way? Short of maybe like them dropping $1 million at your feet or something, let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Plushy Hoarder. Woman expects me to have no issue with her child licking the counters at my work, yells at me for telling him to stop, and demands I give him candy. I have a load of stories about entitled parents. I work in an edible cookie dough shop that also makes shakes and fraps, so kids love it there. So this lady comes in with her kid who looks to be about 6 to 7 and looks at the cookie dough flavors. I ask how they're doing just to be waved off. I go wipe down the counters since she's clearly in her own little world and watch them while she continues to look. About 5 minutes go by and she's just standing there before leaning over the counter and yelling, "Hello, I've been waiting." I just stare at her in disbelief before saying, "Hey, I'm over here." She whips around to see me standing behind the counter to her right. She rolls her eyes and walks over to me. "I want samples. You do that, right?" I nod and go over to the other side to give her samples. That's when her kid starts whining about how he wants sprinkles, and just sprinkles since we have those cotton candy sprinkles. She just rolls her eyes and tries more samples. She then insists I go into the back and let her try a fresh sample of the one she had decided on. I argued with her for a moment, but ultimately went and got the bucket of cookie dough because as soon as she left, I could close. I come back out and she's looking at her phone. I then look at the counter to see her child laying on his stomach on the counter, grabbing handfuls of the sprinkles, dropping them on the counter, then licking them up. I gasp and walk over and wipe off the counter, telling him to get down. The kid instantly starts throwing a fit. His mom starts yelling about how he's fine and it's not a big deal. I tell her about how gross the counters are and she doesn't care at all. She then tells me to give her and her son free cookie dough and M&Ms. I refuse and she threatens to take my tip jar. I pull it behind the counter and she storms off, dragging her kid with her. We already had one pandemic start. We don't need another one to start from some dumb kid licking counters in various storefronts. I know kids will be kids, but oh man. I'm just thinking about the wide range of people that show up to an ice cream store, put their hands on the counters, money on the counter, wallets, purses, whatever, and then this kid comes along and more or less just kind of wipes their tongue all over that stuff. Ew. This next story is by Violent Violet Riot. I guess you can have some carrots? So a tie-dye t-shirt post reminded me of a time a few years ago. We were at a spot that had multiple animals and had policies where you could bring your own food as long as it was dietary approved for the animals in what was essentially a petting zoo. There were also options to buy the same food at the front desk area, or whatever you want to call it, for about a 300% markup because it was a rehab shelter. I went there with my husband with a big bag of approved food, carrots, for the ponies and horses and donkey area. We both got to pull about maybe 2 or 3 carrots before we were approached by a family that asked to have a couple carrots for their 2 young kids. Sure, what's the harm? We have so many we can spare a few and still enjoy the day. Then we get approached by another family. Okay, sure, 2 or 3 more won't hurt, I suppose. Then a third family, all with multiple kids. I had to stop at the third family because, I'm sorry, I'm not here to fund your vacation, and you had the option to not only buy food but support the local rescue, and you didn't. Long story short, we denied the final family and told them we weren't staff giving out food and got sworn at for not being fair. No good deed. I mean, considering it's your own carrots that you bought and brought, they had every right in this situation to say no, we're not wanting to give out any more carrots. If the family asking for it blows up or gets upset, that's their own problem. As long as they're not bothering you and they don't ruin your experience, I say just keep on enjoying yourself. Our next story is by Clear Emollient. Entitled Stranger at a Campground expects me to have a shirt for her kid to tie-dye, throws world-class tantrum when I don't. So my boyfriend and I went camping this weekend at a campground, and we met this couple with their son, maybe 7 to 11 years old, while we were setting up our tent, and they were setting up at the plot next to ours. We had some polite small talk, and we mentioned that we bought a tie-dye kit to tie-dye a couple t-shirts while we're there. It was really just a small, cheap tie-dye kit, and we both brought 2 shirts to make. The mother immediately got excited and said her son would love to tie-dye with us later that night. We were caught off guard, but I was sure there'd be some extra dye and I didn't really care that much, so I said sure. A few hours of hiking and fishing go by, and then we're ready to go back and settle into our campsite, eat dinner, and start making our t-shirts. We round the corner towards camp, and it was as if this kid was waiting for us. He was right at the path and then sprinted back to his campsite. Once we got closer, his mother stomped over to the trail, and this is how the conversation went. The entitled mother said, "Where have you guys been? We've waited hours." I said, we've been hiking, but he can come use it in a little bit once we set it up. I was totally caught off guard and turned off that she even approached me that way, but I blew it off again. Like, did this lady expect me to alter my plans all day to cater to her kid? We get to our campsite and I'm about to start dinner, but this woman and her kid are just staring at us. So I decide to just get the dye ready so he can bring his stupid t-shirt over and leave us alone so we can eat in peace. I bring the dye out and they come over to our table empty-handed. The entitled mother says, "Looks great. He's a small or a medium." I say, "What? I don't have anything for him to use. I thought you had your own t-shirt that you wanted to dye." The entitled mother says, "No, you are the ones who brought the tie-dye kit. We waited all day for you to get back, and now you're saying you don't even have a t-shirt for him?" I say, "I don't know what to tell you. We only have 4 t-shirts to make for ourselves." She says, "I can't believe you told my son that he could tie-dye and got his hopes up. He waited for you all day. Can he have one of yours?" I say, "Absolutely not," while laughing. She says, "It's not funny, don't laugh at me." At that point, I'm just like, "Whatever, lady," and we keep snickering at her until they storm back to their campsite, where she starts playing literal death metal music full blast. It's hilarious. This chick was insane, throwing a full-blown tantrum and glaring at us from afar. An hour or so later, the ranger comes over to our tent and said he got a report that we were drinking alcohol. We were drinking alcohol, but they typically don't care unless we're disturbing other campers. And we were just two people sitting and eating dinner quietly. I told him what happened, and he thought it was hilarious. And I jokingly said that I'd like to make a counter-report about Entitled Mother's music. He was like, "Heck yeah, I'll do that," and went over to her. She threw a fit when he told her to turn that crap down, and I heard her screaming about how we're partying and drinking, and how dare he confront her and not us. Eventually, her husband turned her music off while she was mid-screech. Then she sulked into her tent and never came back out, and the ranger came back over to our site for a beer after dark. We considered calling her poor husband over for a beer too, but decided to not poke the bear. I'm just imagining this scenario where everything went absolutely wrong for the Entitled Mother, and it ended up with them sulking in their tent, while the park ranger they called and their husband were off having a beer and enjoying a good night with the people she despised. This next story is by Late Bloomer. Entitled Mom thinks she can borrow $30,000. I, 28, have a younger half-brother, 18. We didn't grow up in the same house. I lived with my alcoholic dad, and he still lives with my mom and stepdad. Our mom has always been a manipulative, awful human. I'm a grown adult now with my own family. I've gone to therapy and support groups to get through the pain my parents both caused me. I'm still healing but have come a long way. My mom put me and my older brother through a lot of pain, so I knew my younger brother was in for a crap show since he lives with her full time. Some highlights of my teenage years: one time she snuck a Xanax in my lunch because I was being hormonal. She introduced me to and used marijuana and alcohol with me from age 14 and on, and has done the same with my brothers. She told me I lied about my sexual assault. She had a secret affair and told me to keep it a secret from my stepdad. She took us on a trip to Europe after she won a settlement only 3 months prior for 1/3 of $1 million. When we got to Europe, she didn't have any money left. We had to throw our bags out a window to skip out on the hotel bill. I flew home to my dad's house in the US with $6 in my wallet. That all being said, clearly my mom is an opportunist. So when my brother was attacked by a dog like 8 years ago, she of course sued and settled with the dog owner. He received $55,000 in a bank account to be accessed when he turned 18. My mom manipulated him so much since then, giving him weed whenever he wants it, daily of course. No consequences, anything he wants. Now he's 18. He dropped out of high school, no driver's license or job, and has no life plans and no idea how the real world works. It's very concerning, and since I have boundaries with this side of my family, I can't step in to help for the sake of my own mental health. He isn't my child or responsibility, you know? Anyways, I met with my mom for coffee recently, and of course, she has grand new plans. Happens frequently. She recently quit her job, cashed in her 401k, thinks she's going to borrow $30,000 from my brother to buy an RV and travel the world. I just can't, y'all. If you have advice for how to handle my mental health and maintain boundaries, I'd love to hear your tips. But really, I can't even touch this situation anymore. I've decided to really step away from this relationship for a while, along with my older brother. I just can't be involved. Thanks for listening. This is relentlessly tricky, but for OP's own sanity and sake, if you know interacting with these people would cause you way too many headaches or way too much stress, I think you do have to make sure you maintain that distance and that boundary. In my clueless, unprofessional opinion, my thoughts would just be try and find some way to establish communication with their brother that doesn't involve anybody else really having any interference. If you can establish that line, you can do your best to just try and open their eyes and be completely honest with them. But I don't really know how much more you really can do. But with that being said, that's a wrap on another bunch of stories here today. As always, if you guys have any favorite videos of this bunch, let me know which one in the comments down below and why. And if you enjoyed the stories in general, if you could subscribe to this channel, it'd mean a lot to me. I make these videos daily, and it's by far and away the best way to support my channel. So no matter what you did, whether it was subscribing or liking, leaving a comment, I just appreciate the heck out of you guys. And as always, I'll be back tomorrow with even more stories right here on the Storytime channel.